My therapist said, Tracy, what does joy feel like in your body? And I was like, if you ask me what anger felt like, rage, sorrow, grief, I could immediately take myself to a memory, take myself to a moment and be right there and experiencing all of that. But joy was a lot harder for me. And so I think sometimes when we're climbing and we're producing and we're doing our thing and we're told to strive and hustle and grind, and then we get to a place where we're like, ooh, we're starting to see the fruits of our labor. If we have not along the way nurtured that part of ourselves that need joy and peace and love and rest and all those kinds of things, then we get there, we don't know how to hold it.
Hey friends, and welcome to the Next Best Thing podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Cline-Thomas. Now, I'm here to help you live the life that you design instead of choosing the life you think you have to settle for. All right, we're going to start here saying we did it, we did it, we did it, we did it. We made it to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. 1,000. I don't know 1,000 people in real life, but guess what? In the words of Nene Leakes, we see each other. I'm so excited that we've got 1,000 subscribers. It is something that I asked you all for every week, asking people to subscribe. It really, really means a lot on my journey to my next, talking about the next best thing is not just some made up thing or some abstract thing. It is something that I am also living out right here along with you live and in color. And I'm just so grateful that we could do this together and that you find value in this content to just keep track of it and to listen to every episode and, all your notes, finding value in your comment, like all of it just means a lot. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We have one more threshold that we have to meet, and that's just meeting the watch hour. So basically, don't just subscribe, also watch. And I think we're going to get there very, very soon. So thank you so much for subscribing. It means a lot. If you haven't already, go ahead and jump on the bandwagon with 1,000 of your other friends. All right. So we're really, really happy about that. All right. In the spirit of celebration, today we are talking about joy, right? Our guest, our very, very special guest, is a writer, storyteller, educator, and curator of joy and healing. Her name is Tracey Michae'l Lewis-Giggetts. Tracey has written more than 20 books, including Black Joy, Stories of Resistance, Resilience, and Restoration. And in the fall, the Black Joy Playbook is coming out. It's 30 days of intentionally claiming your delight. It's a play-by-play on how to access that Black joy for yourself. Now, in this episode, y'all, I just threw out my notes. I should have known. I told her I should have known. I just threw out my notes so we could just have this beautiful heart-to-heart conversation about joy, how to access it, and especially how to access it during dark times, the joy that is within us. We're not talking about happiness. We're talking about joy. And there's a difference that Tracey will explain. I am floating. Guys, I am floating. Tracey was on my list of people that I really, really wanted to talk to for a while. And I kind of sent the request like, I hope she says yes. And she said yes. So I'm just floating after this conversation. I just hope you love it as much as I do. So let's just get into this conversation with Tracey. Tracey, I am thrilled to have you with us today. As we were saying before we hit record, joy is something that we need now more than ever before, it feels like. So I want to start that way. What is bringing you joy these days?
That's a very good question. My garden. I about a decade ago, I started with this like small victory garden, and I didn't really make the connection that I was getting joy from gardening. It was just something that I wanted to do because I wanted to grow my own food. And then when we moved where I had a larger space to be able to grow. Now I'm all in. There's a peace working with the soil. There's quiet. It's like therapy in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. I can go there to sort of to sort through what's going on in my brain. And so that's giving me joy. The weather changing is bringing me joy. My
Ugh.
daughter always brings me joy. She wears me out, but she brings me joy.
I think a lot of parents would say amen to that,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And you
But
call
it's
it a vic
all of this is important for me because I'm also carrying a significant amount of grief. So
mm,
there is this thing that I think we so many of us have where we're holding grief and joy simultaneously. So it's important for me to highlight the gardening, the seemingly small things,
mhm.
right? The things that we don't think too much about. Or we don't really categorize as joy. We think of joy as the big things like, ooh, I'm going on vacation, or ooh, I'm going
Yes.
to see my grandmother, and this kind of things. But sometimes it's the small things that keep us holding on. And so the
Yes.
gardening, my daughter, those kinds of things are important for me to name as joy, because there is so much grief in this world and so much grief that I personally carry. So,
Mhm. And you call it your victory garden.
yes.
Tell me
Yes.
about that. It's
Well,
victory garden.
I didn't even know that it was named that. The small gardens. Apparently, my father-in-law shared this with me. Apparently, post World War II, when people are trying to just kind of survive, they called these victory gardens where they had these small gardens in their spaces. And so I didn't know that that's in the beginning. That's what I was creating. But
Mm.
there's something really special, right, about naming the space as my victory space, right? A
Mhm.
place where I go where, and the one thing that I love about gardening that really brings me joy is that I don't have to be good at it, if that makes sense. It's a
Mhm.
space where I can fail
Oh
and I
gosh.
can, and that be okay. And every other area of my life, I feel like I'm required to show up as my best self, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes that's not in alignment with authentically where I am at a particular time. And so with the garden, I just show up as me with all of that comes with that, the good, bad, and ugly. So I don't have to be good. I can put a seed in the ground and it not germinate and that be okay. I can put one in the ground and it flourishes and that's okay too. So there's something really valuable for me as a person who for a long time thrived on validation and thrived on productivity and just doing. It's something really special and gives me a lot of peace and joy to go into a space where I can fail and it's okay. I can be me and that's okay. So I know that might be a little
No, Tracy girl, I was like, here she go. So when I was preparing for this, so when I was like, girl, you are just wasting your time because you just need to have a conversation. I was literally writing out questions and I was like, you gonna throw all these questions out and I'm gonna throw all these questions out. Okay. When you were talking, I said, here she go. Here she go.
I'm
But I
sorry.
do no, this is great. No, this is really, really great because that whole idea of a garden, because it's the process, right? Like,
Mhm.
even if it does not, you know, flourish,
Yes.
the process still has a benefit.
It absolutely does. The process has a benefit, and I think I'm slowly but surely seeing my life in that way. That it's
Mhm.
not about some out there destination. It's not about some out there healing or this destination of being healed. It's about
Mhm.
the process and the work that goes into it, and the things that you learn about yourself. When you forget to water, and
Mm.
you forget, to, in the case of gardening, maybe put the combination of soil that is necessary for that plant to grow. And there's so many lessons that come out of that for me. Am I placing myself in the right environments where I can be nurtured to grow? Am I
Mm-hmm.
watering myself? Am I, pouring into myself in such a way so that I can thrive and flourish? And so those are the lessons that you learn. Or is it just because every good thing is not a God thing. And
Mm.
so for me, maybe that seed that I think is supposed to turn into a tree isn't really supposed to be that. And I have to be okay with that. And I have to be able to move on and have a certain amount of gratitude when I turn around and look at all the things that are growing. Right. Because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I could get stuck on, dang, those tomatoes didn't come up or that squash didn't come up the way I want to, forgetting that I have eggplant and peaches and everything else. And I think sometimes in
Mm-hmm.
our lives, especially when it comes to joy, we forget, some of the basic things that are giving us joy because we're looking out there for, we're looking in one direction. When really,
Mm-hmm.
coming back to a place of gratitude means turning around and saying, oh, yeah, but over here, this is good, this is good, this is good. And so all of those things come from, as you said, the process. And I think I just wrote about this not too long ago, like having not being so outcome centered. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many of us, and I mean, it's the society and the culture that we come out of, is like we're focused on the outcomes as opposed to the journey, the process,
Mm-hmm.
which is where the richest lessons are. Right.
Yes.
Um, yeah.
And I was talking about that in one of my episodes where I was asking, like, what is failure really? Because I've had
Mhm.
to in this season, like, reimagine kind of what I had put on myself about what failure is. And I was like, to me, failure is just not doing it at all, but not like, and reframing it from being doing it and not getting the desired outcome. Cause I was like, well, what if you do it and then you meet dope people along the way? Like you don't get the desired outcome, but like you're meeting dope people, you're learning what not to do next time.
Yes.
You're learning so many lessons from it. So when you try again, you can iterate, right? And so
Yeah.
you're not starting from scratch. How they say you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. So I was like, is that failure? Like, no,
No.
that absolutely isn't. Because we're
Yeah.
learning. As long as we continue learning.
Yeah. I mean, Toni Morrison says failure is education.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything that you deem as not having the outcome that you wish is actually just teaching you how to obtain the outcome the next time around. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
all, like you said, it's lessons, it's relationships. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because I don't know if I've ever thought about that. I've had many a quote unquote failure in my life, projects that I've started that didn't work out. But when I think about the people that I met along the way, and the people that are still in my life as a result of trying, I think we
Mm-hmm.
don't give trying enough credit.
Yes. Try it's all about trying. And that's
Yes.
why this whole platform is just saying, like, I think, and I tell people all the time that there is people, I think that's why people gravitate to this platform
Yes.
because I've said, I don't
Mhm.
know. This
Mhm.
is a whole hypothesis here that we are running. Okay. It's a whole
Absolutely.
experiment that we are running to say, can we design the life that we desire?
Absolutely.
Being Black, can we design the life we desire? Being a woman, can we design the life we desire? Being a Black woman, can we, with all whatever characteristics, marginal identity, can we do that?
Yeah.
Is that available to us? And I believe the answer is yes. With
Yeah.
more strategy, like we can't do it the way other people do it, right? Like,
Right.
but it is still available to us. And so, like, what could that actually look like? And to allow people to like dream. That's when I know I'm in the danger zone, is when I can't dream anymore.
Mm.
And that's when
Yes.
it's like, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. You need to go get some help. You need to like call in the reinforcements because I
Yeah.
can't dream anymore.
Something's blocking your vision. You can't
Yes.
see. You can't see yourself in a when I love that. That really moves me in a way because I have been in situations in my life where I have been unable to see myself other than where I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's value in being able to envision yourself in a place, even if you're not there yet. Maybe you'll get there, maybe not. But the ability, the simple ability to just be able to envision the possibilities of
Mm-hmm.
something, I think is incredibly valuable to our souls, in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of ways. That's real good. That's
And I
good
think
stuff.
as Black people, our power lies in our ability to dream. Just
Mm-hmm.
because um, all the messaging that we were receiving is negative, and so people are like, "Well, how do you have confidence?" So I was like, "I got a secret place none of y'all can tap into. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's mine. It's my receipts."
Yes.
And so I'm unapologetic about that place.
And it's an ancestral mandate, right? Like
That
our
part.
ancestors is how they held on. People wonder
Yes.
how have Black folks survived, you know, the transatlantic slave trade and, Jim Crow segregation and redlining and all of the things. We can run them all down, right? Wealth and income gaps. How have we survived? Well, our ancestors understood, our elders understood that holding on to hope and holding on to the ability to envision yourself differently or envision your children in a different place is the thing that drives you, is the thing that has made it so that we create and innovate and are the culture bearers of most things, right?
Yes.
And so I think, when we lose hope, when we lose, like you said, the ability to dream, then we're in a dire state. And that's my
Mm-hmm.
fear, I think, for what's going on in the world nowadays. I see folks sometimes losing hope, and I'm
Yes.
like, I can't lose. And even finding myself, real talk, finding myself sometimes thinking, is it worth it? Are we
Mm-hmm.
ever going to get to a place that this place that so many activists and so many of us are working toward? Or is it even possible? Is it, and I find myself sort of on the borderline of hope, but then I remember what the baton that was passed to me,
Yes.
right? And I also think we have to reframe what what we're looking for, right? And what we're
Yes.
hoping for, right? And I think that's the work. I say all the time when people ask me about joy, um, I divided my book into Black joy as resistance, which Black folks understand very well. We
Mm-hmm.
sing at the protests, we dance, we create, that we stand in defiance and say that you can kill us, but you can't kill us. All of
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. Black joy as resilience, which is this idea that we are the back we bounce back well,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're always coming back and reinventing ourselves. But then restoration, which is healing. Like, I think if there's anything that our ancestors has passed on to us, they've given us access, right? There's been progress, whatever you think about that word, there's been
Mm-hmm.
progress, right? But I think the next leg of the race for us to run is to heal regardless,
Mm-hmm.
right? For us to focus on what internally our souls need and what our bodies need to be well in the midst of all of this, right? Which is because we now have access, we now have the resources in some cases to be able to do that or to share that with people who don't. And so I feel like we have to reframe what we're going after. That
Mm.
yes, it's policy change, and that's
Right, right.
fantastic, and we want that. We should have that, and we should continue to demand that. But I'm wondering if that really is the end goal, or if it is an internal shift, if it's a kind of peace and joy and love and hope that is, can't be rocked, right? Can't be
Right.
shifted. And so, because what happens is when we do that individually, we turn that into our communities, and now our communities become, healthy and well, and we grow. And regardless of what they say or what's happening outside, we
Mhm.
become, collectively well, right? And
Yeah.
so I think the work is shifting a little bit. And I don't know how I ended up there, and I don't know if I
No,
answered.
this is so good. No, this is so good. It has me like thinking a lot because I do think that the end goal has been so rigid, and it's saying if we don't get, it's like an all or nothing game. So if we don't get this policy change, then it is a failure, not understanding, that the civil rights movement took
Yes.
years of collective action and momentum. So, but in the midst of those years in process, you have to find joy in
Yes.
process,
Hmm.
and it's not just the carrot that's dangled of like when we get here then it will be joyful. And I think that's what how I moved in my life is when I get to this place then it will be joyful when I
Yeah.
get to this. And that was the whole revelation of me blowing up my life is that I got to the place that I was told I should have joy in. And I was like, this sucks.
Same.
Like,
Same. Same.
this really sucks. And so that's one part of it. But the other part is my family is African. And so I grew up going to Sierra Leone all the time.
Hmm.
And part of that, like now I can articulate it, but it was just like my childhood growing up. So, like,
Hmm.
they celebrate the anniversary of people's death, right? In
Mm.
very specific ways, things that you cook, you like make a
Yeah,
plate for the
absolutely.
person and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And so my mother would be like, so it'd be for her mom or whatever. And I never met my grandmother. And so she like make a plate, whatever. And she'd be like, go talk to your grandmother. It'd be on the nice dining room table. She'd be like, go
Hmm.
talk to your grandmother. And I'd be
Hmm.
like, what you mean?
Right, 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 right.
And so I'd have to sit there. She's like, go. And I'd have to sit there and be like, hi, grandma. Like I have no idea, right? But
Right.
it helped in the storytelling and
Yes.
the power of the story and the connection to the people who were no longer physically with us,
Hmm.
but the growing up in a culture in a space where I was like interconnected
Yes.
so deeply, with the understanding that people who did not even know me loved me beforehand and
Hmm.
worked so that I could then become. And
Yes.
so that my existence bared a great responsibility. And
Mm.
so that it wasn't an end goal. So then my responsibility was to not stop the momentum.
Mm.
So then it is to like do my part in the progress in that the destination is undefined, but it
Hmm.
is to be better for my nephews, right? Like
Hmm.
I am to show up in a way for my nephews now.
Yeah.
And if I were to have children, then for them as well, is that if my grandmother could exist in a way in Sierra Leone in her time, and then
Yes.
my mother had to exist in a way and she came to the United States. And then it's like, and I was born here. Like there's like
Hmm.
that's like all the privilege in the world, right?
Yeah.
Even though you're black in the United States, it's still all comparatively, it is all the privilege in the world.
Yeah.
You see struggle differently because you're like charged with a responsibility,
Hmm.
you know?
And you know what I would I just add, I love the idea of you grew up with this understanding that it's more than the people you see that are rooting you on,
Hmm.
right? Like that to me is extremely powerful. That this idea that as my Black Baptist church upbringing would say, there's this great cloud of witnesses
Yes,
that are
yes.
that are cheering you on and that are saying run on and see what the end gonna be, and that kind of thing. And this idea that I I would just say that this generation, our generation, the generations that come, I think have an added responsibility
Hmm.
because we have the privilege and the access to ensure wellness along the way in a
Yes.
way that our grandmothers and our mothers could not because they weren't afforded that opportunity.
Right.
And so that goes back to this idea of trying to write in joy into our days
Hmm.
daily, you know, accessing our joy. Because, like you said, you can get to the top of wherever you're climbing to and realize when you get there that, and in my instance, what I realized was I don't even know how to access joy.
Yes, I
I had
wanted
a,
to talk about that.
yeah, like I don't even know how to locate it. My therapist said, Tracy, what does joy feel like in your body? And I was like, if you ask me what anger felt like,
You got it
rage,
right there. Right there.
or sorrow, grief, I could immediately take myself to a memory, take
Yes.
myself to a moment and be right there and experiencing all of that. But joy
Yes.
was a lot harder for me.
Yes.
And so I think sometimes when we're climbing and we're producing and we're doing our thing and we're told to strive and hustle and grind, and then we get to a place where we're like, ooh, we're starting to see the fruits of our labor. If we have not along the way nurtured that part of ourselves that need joy and peace and love and rest and all those kinds of things, then we get there, we don't know how to hold it, right? We
Right.
don't know how to maintain it. And so we have to do things, right? Like you and I did to
Yes.
regroup, to refresh, to reboot, or else really frankly, we die. And I'm not talking about
Yes.
physically. I'm talking about spiritually and emotionally and psychologically. It
In plain
affects,
sight.
yes, absolutely.
And so how did you your joy journey as you call it, how did you navigate when you were asked that question to
Mhm.
tap into, well, what finding the answer? What does joy feel like in your body?
Yeah. I should say that I am still on this journey.
Okay.
And so I am every day uncovering new ways. But I think initially, I guess this was 2019. Yeah, 2019, because had been doing quite a bit of diversity, equity, and inclusion work on the campus where I was teaching. I was writing quite a bit about some of the activist movements and Black Lives Matter and some of the other social justice movements that were happening at the time. And I lost a family member to racial violence
Oh wow,
in
I'm so sorry.
2018.
I'm
Yeah,
so sorry.
someone walked into a Kroger and decided that my aunt Vicky would no longer be here anymore. And
Wow.
so that having it's one thing to write about and to do this work in the abstract, is another to do it when it's concrete, when it lands in your family's lap, right? And so my body broke down. I say all that to say that my body broke down. I was ill. I was pretty much in the bed for 6 months, and I did not really know what was happening. No doctor could tell me what was happening. I just knew that I was not well. And my therapist at the time, that's when she posed that question to me. Um, and I took the challenge of, okay, I don't know what joy feels like. I can't access it. I need to figure it out. And so being intentional every day about locating joy, trying to figure out what joy, and the difference between joy and happiness, right? Because
Yes.
happiness is a very temporary thing. It's like, oh, I got on this, the roller coaster at Six Flags and I had a great time, and like that temporary moment of happiness. But joy is like that ancestral thing, it's that undercurrent that exists no matter what's going on. How do I tap into that? But the first thing I needed to do was like figure out somatically, like what is going on in my body. And
Mhm.
so, interestingly enough, I figured out what joy felt like in my body by watching an episode of This Is Us.
Okay.
Don't judge me, please.
No, not at all. I didn't get on the bandwagon, but I know plenty of people who did, and it was like amazing television. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I happened to be watching an episode and it wasn't about, I couldn't even tell you what was going on in the episode. I love the show, but as a writer and as a storyteller, I'm always drawn to well developed characters and
Mhm.
story. And I was sitting there watching the show and I felt like this excitement, right? Like I felt my body just going into this place of super excitement. And again, it wasn't necessarily anything, but this is great storytelling. Like, oh my God, how did they do that? Like, okay, Randall's, like I was in this moment and I found myself present enough to be able to say, oh, wait, what is this I'm feeling?
Mm.
And to be able to notice that, I get kind of like this flutter in my stomach and I have this warmth in my chest. And I was smiling so hard that my husband kind of walked in the room and was like, I don't know. I'm gonna let you be because I don't know what's happening here. But I was like, just so excited. And I had to stop and say, aha, when I am at this, experiencing a moment of joy, this is what it feels like. And so that one moment allowed me to pay close attention to when that came up in the future, right? And so I said, oh, now that I know, because I went back to my therapist excited, like, I know what joy feels like in my body. And she's like, okay, that's great. And just know that that's going to change and evolve, as you grow and change and evolve. But now that you know, what I want you to do is almost take a mental snapshot of what that felt like. The same way you was able to call up the moment where rage and sorrow. I want you to do the same thing. Just take a mental snapshot of that. And when you are on the brink, when you're losing hope, when you are um, grieving or rage is just taking you over, I want you to call up the memory of that moment, sitting on the couch watching This Is Up. This Is Us. It's not going to get rid of the rage. It's not going to get rid of the grief, but it's going to right size. It's like medicine. It's going to slowly but surely begin to right size you because your body doesn't know the difference. Your body, your central nervous system only knows that you are calling up joy for some reason right now. Right. And so your body is going to respond. It's going to give you those hormonal responses, right, that are going to help right size you in that moment. And so I started doing that. I started, when things were really hard and tough, and I was going through a tough time, or just kind of like everyday life stuff, right? I began to call it up and it worked. And I was like, oh, okay. So
Wow.
that's just the somatic stuff. That's not even like the psychological, the spiritual piece of it, but that was just me figuring out what it felt like for me to experience joy and then being able to call it up when I needed. And so then the next step after that was like, how can I create it? How can I be intentional about creating experiences in that will allow me to naturally, organically experience this joy that I know I have. So I begin to figure out, like, I love to go on the swings with my daughter at the playground. It taps into 10-year-old Tracey, my inner child,
Mm.
right? When I felt free, when I felt, unburdened, right? And so yes, almost 50-year-old Tracey gets her butt on the swing, right? I don't jump out because I ain't got Megan's knees,
Yeah.
but I used to jump. I don't jump anymore, but I swing and I realize that there's like this deep undercurrent of joy that just takes me over. So when I am struggling through a deadline for a book, or I have a ghostwriting client that is wearing me out, I go up the street to the park, or I go to our backyard. We have like this huge kind of like swing that comes off of the tree, and I jump in that and I ask my husband, push me on the swing. And he pushes me really high and I soar and something happens in my body. My body doesn't know the difference that this is just my body just said, oh, let's shoot this dopamine, let's shoot this adrenaline, let's shoot this serotonin on out because she apparently needs it. And so I figured out that I can create joy moments for myself, right? And I can then the next step, the beautiful thing is that it's contagious. And so when you start to do that more for yourself and intentional, it starts to catch on with your sphere of influence. People around me now will say, you know what, girl, I did such and such and that thing. I didn't even think I was going to like it, but I loved it. And I'm going to do it more often. It starts to get contagious. And so now your individual joy journey is now having an impact on your community and the collective. And I just believe strongly if we all take on this mandate to try to have more joy in the midst of pain, in the midst of trauma, that we could see a shift. We could see an impact on what's going on in our communities. And again, another long-winded answer, but
Oh, I love that. I love that. Just I love that so much. I pass a park all the time because I like to go. I live by the East River, and so I like to
Mhm.
go.
Yeah.
Just in my days, I'm like, I gotta get out and
Mhm.
go to the park, and just it's beautiful. But I think I might stop at the swing. I
Yeah.
really might stop because there's a small park before I get to the big. And I was like, I think I might stop at the swing because
And
I used to love that.
you might find that the swings aren't your thing. The slide might be your thing,
Yeah, right.
or the seesaw. Like I tell people, like you can do what I do and maybe that will work, but maybe you find that there's something else at the park that moves you, that takes you back to that time when you were 8 and you went to that place and you hung out with your cousins or, whatever it is, you know.
Oh, as a kid, I love this. Like it was my jam. Like that was my joint.
Yes.
No, I love that. And in terms of joy being contagious, your joy was very contagious when you won the NAACP Image Award. Like I can't tell you how many times I watched that video. I can't tell you how many times.
And the winner for Outstanding Literary Work Instruction is Black.
And I was like, I don't know this lady, but I am so excited for her.
I got a lot of those comments. I don't know you, but
Yes. So contagious. I want to get into, before we wrap up, your new book, Black Joy Playbook, coming out October 29th.
Mhm.
Tell us about how you're going to help guide us through kind of being more intentional about creating these joyful moments.
Yeah, so Black Joy, the book, was just like these collection of personal essays, my own journey, right? And all the things that I'd researched and all the things I observed and all the things that memories that I'd mined of my own. But I kept thinking as I started speaking and talking to people, it's like, what could I offer that would be tangible work for people to be able, things that they could actually do to begin to go on their own joy journey. And
Mhm.
so working with my agents and all of that, we finally were able to sell this project called the Black Joy Playbook, which really is a playbook. It is really, I do have some inspirational writing in there for each of the 30 days, but really I provide questions and activities and things to help you begin to mind your life and to remember that you love the swings, right? Or
Mhm.
to remember, that song that triggers, that makes you just,
Yeah.
like, because, and then also giving you tasks to say, okay, well, what would it look like for you? High powered, Black woman VP, to shut the office door and turn your Spotify on for 5 minutes and to just dance for 5 minutes before you go into that meeting. What would it look like for you to choose that for yourself? And so I give, examples and activities and things for you to journal. It is a journal and a devotional. So
Mhm.
you are sort of grounded in faith and grounded in story and opportunities for you to kind of figure out what joy looks like for you. And it's a fun book, so it's like lots of, you can write in it. There's lines for journaling, there's questions to answer, there's games to play, all with the point that after these 30 days you have now created your joy playbook. And so when you get stuck, or when you're feeling hopeless, or when you're the other emotions in your body are bigger than they should be, you have this playbook that you've created for yourself that will allow you to be able to access joy in a way that's meaningful for you because you did that work for 30 days, right? And yeah, so that's what the Black Joy Playbook is. And I'm really excited about it because, again, I've had so many people on the road over these last 2 years just say, yes, it was great reading your story. Yes, it's wonderful, blah, 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 blah. But like, how do I do it for myself? And so this is the chance for folks to do it for themselves.
We can't wait. We can't wait. It'll make a perfect gift. I already have people in mind that I'm going to gift it to,
Yes.
and we have to
Thank you.
pre-order. But last thing that I do on every episode is Ask the Guest. It's the Act Up segment, ACT. Those are my initials. And so if somebody is ready to go on their joy journey, I said in one episode, because for me, I thought like being melancholy was like my norm because it was just so constant.
Yeah.
For me, until I was just like, no, it can't be. I don't know how else it can't be, but it just can't. Like, I just got to figure this out. For somebody who might be there and they're just like, I want joy to be available to me. What's one step they could take today to kind of get them into the momentum of being on that joy journey?
I think, honestly, I'm repeating this only because I believe so much in it. It really starts in the body. Feeling good tells your brain that it's okay. You have to create safety for yourself to sometimes experience the joy. So the first step, I think, is to really figure out if there is this heaviness or melancholy, as you say, present and it's constant. I definitely recommend therapy. I definitely recommend looking into, because our bodies are interesting, and there's sometimes are chemical things that are happening. Like for me, one big chemical thing that people don't talk about, they're talking about more, but not as much as I would like, perimenopause. There are chemical things that are going on in my almost 50-year-old body that means that I do feel weight and the heaviness and anxiety and depression in ways that I may not have 20 years ago. And so I think the first step is to try to figure out if there's something chemically going on. If that's not the case, then it really is a step by step of what is one thing that will make you laugh. What's one thing that will make you laugh? When I was sick and laying in bed for 6 months and I had no idea, and there was depression and anxiety and all of that present. And as someone who lives with PTSD anyway, it was even more weighty. I turned on Netflix and I watched every stand-up comedy show that I could possibly can. I chose laughter. So sometimes it's just some very small thing that you can do. I chose laughter, and some stuff was funny and some stuff wasn't. But I chose that I needed to laugh. And for the moment that I was laughing, the pain died back. There was a real connection between the pain and the heaviness that I was experiencing and my ability to come out of it for a moment and enjoy a few jokes and laugh. So I would recommend that you just maybe choose laughter. What will make you laugh? Is it a show? Is it a song? Is it, in my case, I have a kid who's hilarious, right? Like, is there something that you can grab onto that will allow you to experience, even if it's just a millisecond of joy in that moment? Because that millisecond of joy is healing. It really is.
It really, really is. Can't wait for your book to come out. How can people keep in contact with you? In the meantime, we're going to put all of that in the description.
Yeah. Sure. My website is sort of the portal. So it's traceymlewis.com. And they can reach me there and find all of my things and pages and stuff that I'm doing there. And then on Instagram, I'm TMLG Writer. Same thing on Facebook. So yeah, they can reach me in those places.
And you have Black Joy Happy Hours.
Black Joy Happy Hour.
Tracey, thank you so much for being here. And your presence brings so much joy. So much joy. Thank you for your work and how you would just inspire us to embrace lightness and being the light. You know, they always talk about in church, being the light in the dark place. You are the embodiment of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for your work. Thank you for what you're doing and what you're putting out in the world. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to The Next Best Thing with Andrea Cline-Thomas, a Mountain Court Media production. The music was written, recorded, and produced by Gavin Casey, also known as Dark Purple. Now, if you like what you heard, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and write a comment on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to share it with friends. I hope this episode helps you on your journey. See you next time.